Tune in. Okay.
taking a nice deep Shabbat breath in and out. A little bit of that stress, that worry, that fear, let it go. Just a little bit for this precious time we have together tonight. Even though we're not together in this space, right now our souls are linked for our wonderful Erev Shabbat service together. I wanted to share with you a beautiful reading written just a few days ago by Rabbi Michelle Lenke. And she calls it a blessing of prayer in a time of pandemic. God of our mothers and fathers, we are incredibly humbled at this moment. While we intended to spend sacred time together in person, side by side, seeing each other panim el panim, face to face, greeting one another with hugs and kisses, we know that we can't do that right now, and we are doing our part to flatten the curve. Instead, we find ourselves surprisingly blessed by this opportunity to immerse ourselves in the miraculous world of modern technology in order to communicate, connect, learn, and pray during these stressful times. As we begin our prayer together, yet apart, help us to be present with and for one another. Some of us are at home with loved ones tonight. Others of us are home alone. Some of us love the solitude, and others may be craving connection. So let us be gentle with one another, and let us listen for messages from one another. Keep distractions out of our vision and the purpose of our being together at this prayerful moment at the core. Thank you, God, for enabling us to engage in the sacred work of building community and maintaining prayerfulness during this Shabbat. Blessed are you, soul of the world, who makes us holy by commanding us to celebrate the sacredness of Shabbat. Amen. And now, please join us, if you happen to be following along, in the flip book for Shabbat on page 120 for the lighting of the Shabbat candles. And now in your space tonight, I hope you find some way to welcome Shabbat even more into your space. Find where you would turn to allow Shabbat to enter even more so. Perhaps it's the door into your room, perhaps it's the door into your home. Where will you turn to allow Shabbat to come in just a little bit more into your home space or into your heart, so that we can turn to page 138 for Lecha Dodi.
Shine.
Shalom in the chat. Take a moment to just send out love and good wishes to our community, to your family, to the world. Send wishes of health and safety and goodness. So take a moment to send all those good Shabbat Shalom wishes out from yourself to the world. And now, with all those wonderful blessings surrounding us, let's turn to page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish. Amen. The next two prayers in our service that lead up to the Shema. God's greatest gifts to us. First is creation. And what could be more incredible than the creation of the world, the creation of light and dark, of day and night? And we often, when we think about creation and the fact that there's one God, and that God could have created both light and dark and day and night, we say, well, wait, if there's only one God, and God could have created both light and dark and day and night, does that mean that God also created good and evil? And if God created darkness, does that mean that evil is included in that? And that's where many of us often say, well, God gave us free will. And God gives us the ability to choose. We recall the words that we say so often during the High Holy Days and that we read from the Torah, where God sets before us life and death and good and evil, and God says, choose life. We have so much personal responsibility. And when we get to the Shema, by the time we get to the Shema, we've read also a prayer for the Torah, and that's a reminder of all the laws and the ethics that God has given us. And the Shema reminds us that we are one. We have that personal responsibility to take this incredible creation that God has given us, of all of the goodness and all of these laws and ethics, and the responsibility for one another, and to do the responsibility we have for one another, to protect each other, to protect this world, and to focus on the fact that we are one.
Shema
Standing up, please feel free to be seated. And we're on page 154 for the Via Hafta.
Via Hafta,
we turn to a prayer that focuses on freedom. And there's been a lot of memes going around right now about the irony of Passover coming up and that we're focusing on the 10 plagues, but ha ha ha, we're kind of in the middle of a plague right now, ha ha ha, and a plague is going to be taking down our holiday about plagues. First of all, I want to let you know that Cantor Belinda and I are going to be working on some type of virtual Seder for the second night of Passover. We're not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but we'll be sharing more of what we'll be sharing with the congregation that you'll be able to log into and share with us. So that's first. And what's second is, one of the reasons we always sing Mi Chamocha is because there are times when we are not always free, and it's a reminder of the times when others are not always free. So as we are singing Mi Chamocha and the next few songs, if you want to share in the chat a moment when you still appreciated freedom, feel free to write something in the chat.
It sounds like so final.
What do you mean?
There was a time when we appreciated freedom.
Oh no, like this week. like it's sorry,
It's okay.
it's gone. That was it.
We had it now, we don't.
Aww. Oh gosh, I didn't mean to have it sound like that.
I'm just
Did it really sound that bad? I'm sorry. still free, and it's not quite as bad as it seems. It could be worse. What was something that reminded you were free? I guess that would be a nicer way to put it. If you had something that was something really sweet this past week, go ahead and share that in the chat as we sing the next few songs. Milchamot, page 158.
Come on.
feels very free, so mazel tov on your new house. Rita Christopher says Shabbat Shalom, and oh, it's okay if there's a typo on Shabbat, don't worry about that. Rebecca Mozingo said, sitting outside under the stars, listening to Shabbat services makes me feel free. Takes away the worry for even just a few minutes, and thank you for that. Oh, thank you, that's such a nice image. Marcy Salzman says, you're in your living room, Joel is playing along. Oh, that's so nice. Spent the day outside on the property doing yard work, freedom. And Linda Regano says, good idea, Rebecca, I just moved outside. Oh, that's so lovely. Deb Ruddy says, candles lit, singing along, and welcoming the I am here posts from everyone. It's so nice, so you still feel like you're together. Even though we are apart, we can still feel like, oh, we're still part of a community. So thank you for those wonderful comments. That's really great. And I do have to give credit. This was Seth's idea to do a little interactive chat. So thank you, Seth. That was terrific. So let's turn to the Tefillah, page 164. If you are able, please rise. in addition to 100,000 people in the United States who are ill right now with the coronavirus, and people all over the world, we know that there are so many of our own community members, our families, our friends who are suffering. And so we take a moment to feel those connections between our hearts and souls, to feel our prayers connected, to feel the ways that our community's prayers are meaningful because they're stronger when they join together. And that they're meaningful to those who know that they're being prayed for. And so tonight we are especially sending our prayers to Reagan Konecki, John DiNicola, Nancy Schwam, Miriam Swidler, Charles Sabat, Burl Bellows, Carrie Bellows, Debbie Clymer, Daphne Rosenberg, Autumn J. St. John, Joyce Giuseppe, Savannah Johnson, Lenore Lesser, Jimmy Brogno, Denise Davies, Ben Sion Benvera Usha, Ruben Starkman, Aubrey Berkhamshaw, Jack Davis, Rita Fink, Ronnie Burson Weiner, Mark Brudenfeld, Gay Clarkson, Barbara Edelson, Roberta Block, Laurie Smith, and Paul Haynes. To these names we add
Joel, Barbara Timmon, and Jackie Brennan.
and all those in your hearts and souls. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka le'Av Rachel v'Yivarech v'Yirapeh et Chol HaCholim ha'Eleh. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel, bless and heal all who are ill, all who are sick. We pray, God, that they return to a sense of wholeness, of peacefulness, that feeling of shlemut, which we all pray for. We pray, God, that their doctors, their caregivers, their family members are blessed with love and compassion and wisdom every step of the way. Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh HaCholim, we praise you, God, who cares for the sick, and let us say together, Amen. Page 371.
In the midst of the worry, the fear, the pain, those who are really suffering, we have to remember, we are Jews, we have an obligation. We also have to celebrate. We have to remember the good things that happen to us. And we're going to do that in a moment. I'll start by saying that we made it. Shabbat. We made it through another week, guys. Isn't that amazing? We're here, we're standing, we're in one piece essentially. Maybe some parts are missing, but for the most part, we're here. Yeah. In here. And I'd like to, for us, especially, there's so many of us, not everybody, but so many of us have been on computer screens, or just screens, laptops, phones, iPads, all kinds of gizmo-gazmos. And I'd just like to take a moment to kind of step out of a virtual world, or for those who actually have been very isolated, and just kind of reground us back into the physical world. So I'd like us to take a moment, we're going to just walk through our senses for a moment this week, to think about something that made you uplifted, that brought you joy, that it was something, using your vision, but not on a screen. Something that you saw in your backyard or in your house or your wherever, but just something, take a moment and be grateful for this wonderful thing that you just saw for a moment. Bring that up. And now think of something that you heard. Maybe it was the child's laughter in your house, or someone even yelling at a distance, but you can hear them, so that's a good thing. Something that you heard. Now let's try something that you smelled. Maybe it was some cooking. We couldn't do as much takeout this week, perhaps. Maybe we cooked something. Or someplace, some smell wafted in from somewhere else. My neighborhood has a lot of smells. They're good ones. They're good ones. Something that you tasted. Something that you touched, or that touched you, a texture, your cat, your dog, your bird, your somebody's hair, your own skin, anything that you were able to feel on your body, with your body. And last, anything else that you are grateful for in this moment, any good thing. I am grateful to be here with these guys, with you, in our world, in our space, in our space of Kedusha, holiness. And we will bless together and say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hatov v'hameiti. Creator, you are good and you make good things happen.
Amen. So, this week, we are finally in the book of Leviticus. Yay! Leviticus, Leviticus. It always comes along with that, picture. They're showgirls, they're dancing, because we are so excited to be in Leviticus. I know that's how you all feel when we get to Leviticus. In Hebrew, it's Vayikra, and immediately we start hearing about 5 different kinds of sacrifices. Sacrifices which were brought to the tabernacle in the context of the Torah, or ultimately to the capital T temple in Jerusalem. And what's really fascinating about the sacrifices that are discussed is, of course, that we don't do them anymore. Now that might seem obvious to you. You might say immediately upon reading about these sacrifices, why in the world should I read about these sacrifices? They mean nothing to me. That is, in itself, fascinating. And it's especially fascinating this Shabbat right now, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it is a hint, it is a sign of the ways in which Judaism is infinitely adaptable. The ways in which we are always growing and evolving. The reason this portion and much of the book of Leviticus feels so foreign to us and irrelevant is because it isn't the way we observe Judaism now. The sacrifices were, of course, the ways in which we communicated with God way back when. When we were happy about something and we wanted to offer gratitude for God, to God, we had a particular sacrifice. When we were feeling very good, there was a sacrifice of well-being. When we wanted to apologize, there was a sin offering. When we just wanted to, have an afternoon sacrifice, there was a mincha offering. There were all kinds of different ways of communicating to God. Well, upon the destruction of the second temple, we didn't build a third temple. And what a crisis that was for Judaism, to all of a sudden lose our method of communication with God. All of a sudden to just have that shut off. And it would have made perfect sense for Judaism to just completely disappear. For us to have no other means of communication with our God, and therefore to throw our hands up and say, I guess we don't have anything anymore. But we didn't. We adapted. We, over time, especially since the Babylonian exile that had begun with the destruction of the first temple in 586 BCE, we had created synagogues, and we had slowly been developing rabbis instead of priests, and we adapted. We had prayer. We created Sidurim. And look what we're doing right now. Right now. We're adapting. And it'll be really interesting. I'm not suggesting at all that forever we will have virtual services. But, in just a few weeks, we looked at each other and we said, okay, we're not going to be allowed to pray together in the same room. But we're not going to give up on Shabbat. We're not going to give up on Kivun. We're not going to give up on singing together, on learning together, on studying Torah together. So what are we going to do? We're going to adapt. And here we are. We, my friends, are survivors. And we adapt. And so when we look this week at Vayikra, the very start of Leviticus, I hope instead of shrugging and saying, what is this to me? I hope instead we say, look at this. Look at what this represents. Look at how we have survived. Because we've gone from there all the way to this. And how incredible it is. And so I hope you celebrate instead that we are here. We are still here. And we will still be here. And Kehi Yiratzon, may that continue to be God's will. Amen. We are now going to continue with our concluding prayers. Beginning with Aleinu, page 586, in the middle of the page. When cherished ties are broken and the chain of love is shattered, only trust and the strength of faith can lighten the heaviness of the heart. At times, the pain of separation seems more than we can bear. But if we dwell too long on our loss, we embitter our hearts and harm ourselves and those about us. The psalmist said that in his affliction he learned the law of God. And in truth, grief is a great teacher when it sends us back to serve and bless the living. We learn how to counsel and comfort those who, like ourselves, are bowed with sorrow. We learn when to keep silent in their presence and when a word will assure them of our love and concern. Thus, even when they are gone, the departed are with us, moving us to live as in their higher moments they themselves wished to live. We remember them now. They live in our hearts. They are an abiding blessing. This Shabbat, we mark the recent passing of Beatrice B. Gottfried Sherwood. We mark the Yortzites, the anniversaries of death of Ann Baser, Oscar Benson, Lawrence Chaplick, Anthony Collins, Rose Crair, Saul Davis, Harry Frank, Gertrude Jackaway, Bernard Jacobson, Anna Maker, Esther Pekaroff, David Timothy Sandberg, Donald Sandberg, Philip Scheffler, Yetta Schreiber, Brenda Udoff, Rose Weinstein, and Dora Zarchin. Zichronam Livracha. And if you are remembering someone whose name you're adding to this list, we also pray that their memories will always be for a blessing. We turn to page 598. Did you have anyone to add to this list? And we join together in Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chaye chonu v'yom echonu, v'chaye t'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala u'vizman kari v'inru, amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam l'olnei almaya, yitvarach v'yishavach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitkaleh v'yithalal, shemei kudusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, v'amiran v'yalma v'imru, amen. Yehei Shalom Rodfe min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom v'mamav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen.
On page 626.
Thank you. health and with wholeness. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.